From a recovery standpoint, and I'll talk from a technical perspective, really it's about resiliency. It's restoring the operations, but it's also about understanding the full story. The best security event is one that was avoided. It didn't happen. The second best security event is the one where you've got a complete timeline. You know, the threat actor did this first, then they did this, then they did this, then they did this, they touched this, they looked at this, they exfiltrated this, they modified this system. All of these things have been restored back to a trusted state, and there's a story to it. The hardest ones, and the ones that occur more frequently, where you don't have all of those appropriate layers of protection, the teams, the processes in place, you detect it some percentage of the way into the attack, but you don't know what happened prior to that, and you never have a way of 100% being certain what happened before it. It's based on what everybody can see in the moment. So it's very important to have those layers of protection before a threat occurs so that you can bring the whole story together, which makes all the other conversations that Corey and Mike are talking about much easier. And then you want to reestablish those trusts, or reestablish trust in the compromised assets. I saw one of the things in an earlier slide, I think it was Corey's, one of the things the insurer wants you to do is get the environment back down to a small trusted state, kick people out of the environment, preserve the state, preserve the evidence. In order to do business, people have to be in the environment. So you've got to reestablish trust in the compromised assets in a meaningful, measured way in collaboration with all the other expert teams that are involved in this.
What does the recovery look like from an insurance perspective? It's going to be a very complex process, but it's going to be mostly the insurer is going to take the reins. And funny enough, the insurer is typically going to use a guy like Mike. They're typically going to have one of their attorney panelists that leads the charge, and that breach coach, as a lot of them are called, are going to pull all the appropriate levers. They're going to be the ones engaging the crisis management teams, the public relations team, the IT forensics, and then providing all the other legal support. So that is going to be the process in which the insurance reacts. Now, one thing that is very critical, and it's come up before, I've actually sat in meetings about this, is that the insurance is going to make you monetarily whole again, right? It is going to do its best to restore you back to right before that attack happened. Those insurance limits that you're paying premium dollars for, they cannot be used to augment or upgrade your current cybersecurity or IT framework. I mean, they are only there to make you whole again. So I think it's critical that everybody understands that.
From a legal perspective, honestly, it's meeting those regulatory statutory obligations and then ensuring that you're not in breach of contract, or if you are, or if there is any sort of suit on the back end, that you put yourself in a defensible position very early on. The ways that you do this are, again, I talked a little bit about understanding what all your timelines are, understanding what your notification requirements are. That is certainly important. Make sure you hit those time wickets and those time windows. The other aspect is if you work with law enforcement, and a lot of people say, if I get breached, I don't want to work with law enforcement because if I'm in critical infrastructure, it might raise the specter of liability. I always encourage clients to work with the FBI or to work with the Secret Service, especially in event of business email compromise or ransomware. For business email compromise, the Secret Service can get the money back when the banks themselves can't do it. They can stop and they can freeze the transfers. They have that ability. The FBI, it works regularly on developing decryptors for encrypted information that are resulting from ransomware. I'm also working with the FBI on a separate case where they're able to go and reach out overseas to our partners and seize data that is being stored in cloud service providers overseas. So partnering with the FBI, partnering with federal law enforcement can be a huge value add. The other value add there is almost every single state permits an extension of their time window if you are involved in a federal law enforcement investigation. And if you're supporting the FBI and cooperating, generally they're good about providing a letterhead memo from the FBI saying that a company is participating in an investigation or supporting an investigation, and they support the request for an extension for notifications for that purpose. And so there are a lot of benefits of working with the FBI. And then the final thing, from a legal perspective, and this is from a technical perspective, from a legal perspective, from an insurance perspective, making sure you're implementing the remedial measures and making sure that you are applying those lessons learned so that it doesn't happen again. The absolute worst thing for a company, for any organization after a cyber breach, is to suffer another breach. Because from a financial perspective, it hits. From a reputational perspective, it hits. And then from the specter of liability, it goes up almost exponentially. Because if you're breached once, sometimes that's okay. It's forgivable. If you're breached again in the immediate aftermath, customers, clients, vendors, they're going to come knocking.
Let's talk about that same thing. Can you talk through that from a business perspective? Just your relationships between your vendors and your clients and your company. What's this look like?
Yeah, and so early on, I highly recommend, as it makes sense to do, be very open and transparent with customers, with vendors, with partners about what's going on. That doesn't mean that you're going to give them root cause analysis. That doesn't mean that you're going to turn over the forensics report, but being very open and honest that we suffered a breach when you have made that determination. We suffered a ransomware attack when you made that determination, when it makes sense to do so. Customers, clients, vendors, partners, they appreciate this, and it also brings them in and makes them want to assist. In the current environment, the current climate, we are seeing breaches happen more and more. People are generally understanding that this is a part of business. And as long as you are doing everything you can to remediate, everything you can to get back to business, they generally understand and they're good about it. The one thing I will caution is that root cause analysis. If that root cause analysis determines that you are negligent in any way or grossly negligent, that can serve to invalidate any indemnifications that you have in some of your specific contracts. So those are the areas where you want to make sure that you are utilizing attorney-client privilege to protect that root cause analysis, or don't do the root cause analysis.